Believers, in the world, people often embrace concepts without checking whether they're true or not. The same the world has done with things as privacy, private lives, boundaries. They just embrace concepts because those concepts promise control to them. Because worldlings are all about control. They crave control. So when you come with a concept that hints that they're entitled to control, they take it without checking, is this really a healthy thing? Now, there is this idea called toxic positivity, which is a contradiction because positivity is not toxic. The moment something is toxic means it's negative. So what is this thing called toxic positivity? What do they mean with it? They mean when you pretend everything's all right while it's not. Now, let's look at the bigger picture now. If there is a situation, and the situation is bad, then of course you need to admit the situation is bad. But admitting is the beginning. Processing is the second. And with processing comes responsibility for all parties involved. And that is where the problem comes in with worldlings. When something is bad, there's a reason why it's bad. That means that the people involved are not functional, or if are functional, they're not functional in the right way. So when you have a situation that's off, everyone involved must be examined to check where it went wrong. And that means everyone must be transparent, everyone must be vulnerable to be corrected, and everyone must be willing to take the obligation to work for a better outcome. The moment people just want to complain and dump to be left alone, there is no justice, there is no honesty, and there's no safety. There's no honesty because honesty implies transparency that also reveals that you also have your parts to play. But when people just want relief, they don't want to admit their part, they just want to dump whatever frustration or tension they feel, and they don't care how it affects you. How it affects you is your problem, they just need to dump, and then they don't want to hear anything about it. And that's why in the world you have people that don't mention when things are bad, because once you mention something is bad, you force others to take responsibility. But here's the thing, when people don't want to take responsibility, and they are the aggressors in a situation, and you mention something is bad, they will experience this as an attack. And when they feel attacked, for them, it's justified to explode and to do whatever they want to do. But they only dare to do this with people that are weaker than them physically or mentally, because there they can get away with it. So, as a survival mechanism, many people develop this attitude that they just don't mention when something is bad. Now, don't get things twisted. Sometimes you should wait with just opening your mouth and telling what's wrong. You should. But there are times when there's a situation is life-threatening, they should open your mouth and say, hold on a minute, something's wrong here. And here's the thing. When it comes to evil, evil only exists because human beings maintain it. And we maintain it because we don't want to give up controlling. We don't want to give up playing God. Playing God is more important to us in general than the long-term well-being of ourselves and our species. So as long as there's this pride, this clinging onto playing God, evil will remain in existence. As long as that's going on, there's no honesty possible and there are no solutions coming out of it. So toxic positivity doesn't exist. What people do, not mentioning that something is wrong when they go into denial, often they go into denial because they know the alternative, opening their mouth and addressing stuff, may lead to violence. Because that's what happens when you're dealing with narcissistic people. They don't want to admit that they are responsible and they are obliged to comply with solutions. Narcissists don't want obligations. They just want benefits and they want to dump all pollution that they bring forth. So, if you're dealing with an individual who doesn't want to comply with justice, this is what you do. You shake them off of you. You seek to disengage from that individual. If you're a child and one of your parents is that way, and you're growing up, make sure you get out of the house as soon as possible, out of your parental house, and then you break contact with them. Because if people don't want to be real, then there is no solution possible with them. If you're in a community and people are disregarding you over and over again, that means you are the scapegoat. Nobody wants to be disregarded. If you disregarded or you were not attentive to the needs and expectations of others, they would become upset and they may become violent. But when they do it, it's fine. That's scapegoat. That's a narcissistic attitude of the community. They just want someone to violate. They want someone to hate so they don't have to face themselves. When you're dealing with such situations, it's easy to go into denial. Then they have to face the shock of how bad the people really are. Now, to some extent, the denial is healthy because it doesn't overwhelm your mind. But over time, you need to admit these people are just bad people. And once you admit they're just bad people, now you can see other options that are available to you. So toxic positivity does not exist. The only thing that exists is people holding on to denial more than they should. Are there times you should deny things? Yes. There are times denial is a healthy coping mechanism on the short term, just so you're not overwhelmed and you don't mentally collapse. That's true. But over time, when it's obvious that no change for the better will happen, it is because people don't want change for the better. They prefer the current darkness where they can play God and where they can play the victim. They prefer the current darkness in which they can violate victims and treat victims badly to feel superior. Yes, they're bad and they don't want anything to be done about it. And they want victims where they can get away with being bad. So when you're dealing with a situation, you shake them off of you and you enforce spiritual repercussions on them. Because there is no way that should be accepted. And when you have a population that enables bad people, that enables violence because they don't want to face themselves, then you shake that population off of you. What the world wants is for you to persist in denial so that they don't have to face themselves. And look, here's another thing. When you're upset with a situation, just because you are upset doesn't mean that something wrong is going on. Just because you're offended when someone says something doesn't mean that something offensive has been said. So when you open your mouth because you're upset about a situation or you're not happy with a situation, then you also must be able to explain yourself. And if you're wrong, you must admit you were wrong and take responsibility for the effects of what you've said. What do you say happen in the world? People just want to dump and seek relief, and others have to deal with deal with the consequences. And if they don't have someone to dump upon, they escalate. And children are the easiest victims of this. And children are told they need to validate the anger of adults by giving in to what adults want. That's very cruel and it's very dumb. Listen, you check the type of people you're dealing with. And when you realize that they don't want solutions and that's what they are, bad people, say it as it is. They're just bad people. Does that mean that there is no help available for them? There is. But it's just because, but this is the thing, they're bad people because they don't want to admit they need help. They're enabling harm and danger just to be at ease. They're dangerous. They are delusional. So, don't support this mentality that people just have to bluntly throw everything out when they're upset. Well, it gives them relief, but it may even worsen the situation. And scripture may explain that a fool just throws out their dissatisfaction like that. Real people, realistic people, they look for solutions. They are even willing to sacrifice and to invest in solutions. That's what real, healthy people do. Toxic people just want to dump and be relieved. And they call it honesty when they dump. They just want to dump, say, well, at least I'm honest. No, that's not honesty, it's just violence. Honesty means you admit that something is not correct, you want to figure out what's not correct, and you want a solution that works out in everyone's benefit. But if you're just upset, you're fed up, you just want to throw it out to be left alone, you're violent, you're dumping, and you're contributing to danger. And in no shape or form should you be honored nor praised for that behavior, because that's pathetic behavior that the Most High will never endorse. And people only do this dumping with people they can get away with. If it's a police officer standing there, they're not going to do it. Or if it's someone who has a tendency to explode in violent rage, they won't do it. They will do it against children. They will do it to people at the job that are of low rank, or do we do it to people who are in a bad situation that they can't defend themselves? So this so-called honesty that world promotes is really cowardice in action. Again, toxic positivity does not exist. What exists is that people hold on to denial far longer than they should. Walk by faith, agree with Christ, and let Him guide you. Be at peace.